And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, originating from the Ridge Floor Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. I'd like to remind you, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for the program, people you'd like us to talk to, or subject you'd like us to broach, just drop us a line in the comments below. Or if you'd like to be a sponsor of the program or send us a letter, you can get us at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com. Remember to check out the YouTube page here Monday through Friday. Our goal is to put up a new program each and every weekday. And please subscribe to our YouTube page and join our pages at the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. That'd be very helpful. If you're one of our northern visitors coming back, now you'll be able to hear us as we used to be in the olden days, except now you can get us on demand. You don't have to listen between 8 and 10 in the morning. You can just get it once you want. John Larsen in the studios this morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you. Good to have you back with us. And first of all, we want to take this. This is Veterans. This being recorded on Veterans Day, and we want to thank all the veterans who have helped to keep us free. And John, semper fi to you, my friend.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so we appreciate them and hope that you spent Veterans Day in a maybe the local veterans observations and thank the veteran for all they have done for us. John, of course, just back from a successful trip to the Kennedy Space Center, and you took, is it your granddaughter or your
great-granddaughter?
Great-granddaughter.
And my daughter.
And your great-granddaughter, who is the science buff.
Right, and whatnot. So I'm assuming that she took it all in. There's a lot to see over there, and we were there for the better part of 2 days, and you still don't see it all. I mean, there's just such a massive amount of things to see over there, and interesting. And there was a lot of pride involved in it. When you sat and watched some of the videos of what the astronauts went through and everything that they're involved in during the flight, the takeoff, the landing, and all that, the different iterations of science, rockets, and going into space. And one of the major things that we saw, I thought very interesting, yesterday at the end, they have an IMAX theater, and there was about a 10 or 15 minute video they showed. The next evolution of getting into space is not going to be by rocket fuel. They have, and I'll call it like a centrifuge, but you wind this rocket up, wind it up, and then that's a typical form, sends it into space. So there's no rocket fuel involved. So you're planning on that thing being able to go up and be able to come back.
And that's very sad news for me, because I'm on the Facebook Space Launch Schedule group, and they give you a notice when there's going to be a launch, and we love it when it's during the evening hours, the dark hours, because when they're just getting down to the last minute 30 seconds, we kind of walk to the end of the driveway, and then 3, 2, 1, and then you see this orange glow on the horizon. We look over about 1,000 acres of orange groves, and all of a sudden, here comes this little light comes, and the big ones you can actually see a flame, and we stand there and we watch them go off. It is just an astonishing thing to watch. During the daytime, you might see a little pinprick of light, but you really can't see it that well. At the nighttime, it's spectacular. And I told John when he was telling me about this, it's kind of like electric race cars. You miss the vroom vroom. Well, I'll miss the light in the sky watching them go up.
Well, like I said, that's and why they've chosen to get away from rocket fuel. Maybe it's a safety factor of having people on board with the rockets, and the chance for a major fire and explosion, and maybe that's the reason why they're doing this. I don't know, but you look at it and you say, oh my gosh. I mean, it's one thing to get in a rocket and know you got some power behind you to send you up and bring you back. But without that, you're thinking, whoo, and I'm going to be the first guy to do this? I mean, I don't know, brother. I don't know. I mean, you might want to have your will all made out. I'm not sure. I know they know a lot more about what's going on than I will ever know. But still, just the thought of not having the rocket fuel to bring you back after you get up there.
Well, they may have it may be a hybrid model. They may have some backup for that. And the other thing is that there are new geological studies that are beginning to show that petroleum in the earth may be a recurring thing. It may be regenerating itself, and not just oil deposits that are going to be finite. They're going to run out in a certain amount of time. So it's going to be interesting to me to see if we end up with more oil than we ever thought we needed.
Well, that maybe that's a possibility, but this was kind of I didn't have any idea at all that they were considering this kind of a move as the next evolution of going into space. But obviously they are, and they're putting. It was interesting. They were talking about going back, and there were so many iterations of rockets going into space, but one of the major problems they had years and years ago was the heat shields were not, some of them would fall off,
Yes.
some of them could, and when they were going through, they had films, they showed the work that was going into getting the heat shields so that they would work. And one of the meetings they had, they asked the question, they said, well, they wanted these things to be ready and so on, but they weren't. And they said, the director of one of the departments was asking some of the people, he said, well, how long is it going to take before we have this heat shield thing resolved? Well, sir, probably about a year or two. How am I going to explain that to my boss? Actually, it took almost 12 years before they got that resolved. That's how long all of the investigation, trial and error, and testing and so on they had to go through. But it took that long before they finally got heat shields that were able to do what they needed to do. In other words, stay on the rocket, make sure they didn't burn up, make sure they didn't fall off. So that was quite an ordeal. And
one thing that we learned was the hundreds of pounds that paint when they painted the rockets, and they said, "Well, it's just paint." They said, "You know how much paint that takes?" And something you never think about. I mean, it is actually rocket science when you go and did you go through like the history of? They show you the Mercury capsules.
Oh yeah, you go through, depending on, there's so many exhibits over there to go to, depending on which one you go to. But they show you, they have areas where they have all the astronauts, and there's a room filled with just photos and names and that of the various astronauts and what rocket portion they were involved in, whether it was Atlantis or some other part of it. But there are so many over the course of now. We've done this for back in the 60s, 61, 62 when it started, until now. And of course, we had that one where the 3 astronauts were killed because of an explosion and so on. And then they had the other one when I think Ronald Reagan was in office, went up and with the astronauts on it exploded. And all of them,
Challenger, yes.
All of them perished and so on. So there's been a lot of iterations that have taken place over the years, but it was just a very interesting thing to sit there for someone who knows absolutely nothing about going into space, to sit there and just watch and listen and learn, and then go out and actually see some of the rockets, how they started, and then how they got bigger and bigger and bigger because they kept going further and further away, they wanted to take payloads up and whatnot. So it was, just everything about it. It just, you can imagine the amount of money that we have spent on space travel. The government did. And now there's probably about 4 or 5 now major companies that are involved in building rockets and actually sending rockets into space. Elon Musk is one, but there's like 3 or 4 other. Boeing is another one. And there's 2 or 3 others that I cannot off the top remember their names, but I mean, they're involved now. And each one of these are involved in some portion of space exploration. And they develop their stuff, they manufacture, they put the stuff together, there's various contractors and so on. So in order to get them ready to go into space. But it's not just NASA anymore, not at all.
Well, I'm a member of the Space Launch Schedule Group, and there are rocket launches all over the world going up. And sometimes I'll think there'll be a rocket launch, and then I'll look and say, no, that's at Vandenberg, that's not here. And coming up this week, they have 3 rockets scheduled to go off all is exactly the same time. And so I think that what they're going to probably do is move them. If they shoot 2 rockets off at once, I'm going to have my camera out to watch that.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
There's so many things. They're sending so many satellites into space now and equipment to resupply the space station, which, by the way, the space station is about ready to be done away with because it's kind of seen its useful life. And now they're putting together a new space station to send up there so they'll have something they can depend on.
Remember when Space Lab crashed and they were trying to bet where it was going to land?
Oh yeah.
Skylab is falling, and they had a little rock and roll tune, and it ended up falling in the outback in Australia. Ended up burning up and going in there.
So they're they've got that. That's coming. That's going to be one of the next big things, I guess, is getting a new space lab into orbit and get it up there where they can start marrying up to it. And when you look at these things, I mean, these things they're monstrous. I mean, when you see it on television or something, well, that's pretty big. But
it looks like an RV.
When you get next to these things, and my God, are you kidding me? They're like hundreds of feet long, wide, high, tall.
Is that right?
Deep.
There's a lot of equipment in there.
Yeah, there is. And when you took Atlantis was the big one. They have the original Atlantis, I guess, and the whole side of it comes down hydraulically. The whole side of it comes down, and you could park. They said you could put a school bus in there and still have room left over.
Wow,
that's how big it was. It was just monstrous, and they've got it inside the building, and it's hung from the ceiling. And just getting them in there and doing that kind of thing is just, to me, that's an engineering marvel.
Well, I guess the big question is it as expensive as Disney?
Oh, it's pretty expensive. I'll tell you that.
Take your wallet with you.
I'll tell you right now, brother. It is expensive. Okay. I mean, when you go there, I don't care whether you're buying memorabilia, you're buying something. They have numerous gift shops, and you go in. But you know what struck me, because I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to labeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through and I picked up labels off of all kinds of clothing and other items. I only found one thing that was made in USA, and that was a long sleeve, I'll call it a long sleeve T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It had NASA on it, whatever. All the other stuff in there, made in Bangladesh, made in China, made whatever. And I said, are you kidding? Here's the United States space area.
Yes.
Okay. And stuff almost, I would say at least 95, if not more, of the stuff in there was made in China, Bangladesh, you name it, some other country, but not here.
We're always looking, everything from dishwashing sponges to greeting cards to find out where they're made. And we'll look. Let's pick greeting. American greetings is about the best.
Mm-hmm.
You have some in Vietnam, but a lot of it's made in America. But we'll always look to see where it was made after we find a product we like. And if it's not made, unless we absolutely positively have to have it, we try to look for the American products. And in fact, we're going to have Don Burke from Made in USA. We're going to try to get him on this program,
Mm-hmm.
who is it's kind of a funnel for products made in the United States. If you're looking for a certain kind of thing, if it's made here, he can direct us to the places where it's made. And one thing that I think is going to happen, and this has to do with Donald Trump's tariffs, and the left is very proud to call well, the tariffs are just a tax. The tariffs are just a tax, and that may be true to an extent. But the other thing is it brings the price of those products up to what American goods have to charge with a $15 an hour minimum wage. Now, if we could have the minimum wages back where we need to have the minimum wages, then our products would cost less. But because of Bernie Sanders and the people who said, oh, if we just take the minimum wage at $15 an hour, everything will be solved. And some places are even higher than that. It drives the cost of the goods up.
Oh yeah. Well, and the other thing, I had no idea, but we got talking amongst ourselves as for how many people work over here. And I said, well, I'd say a couple thousand. 12,000 people work at the space in Cape Canaveral. 12,000. Now, there's all kinds of positions, people that work in the food courts, people that sell merchandise, mechanics, technicians, but 12,000 plus people work over there.
That's amazing.
So that's just a huge number. That's a city unto itself.
It is. Is it as big as a theme park, as Universal or Disney?
What did they tell us? There was 10,000 acres.
10,000 acres.
But it's also part of, yes, and they don't use all that.
Oh, no,
but
I guess there's a lot of parking too.
Access, the area to access to get into it, because let's face it, they have to keep control of who comes and who goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so on. So but it's a huge, and it's a natural resource area over there. So it's just a multifunctional thing. And there are so many businesses. I assume when you drive in, you see like this one company was called Knight, Knight, and they must be involved because they have signs and buildings and structures all over the place and whatnot. So it was just a very interesting thing. And if you really wanted to understand more about it, to me, you almost need to be there for a week and wanted to take your time, walk through, take in all the exhibits, actually look at the literature that's associated with it, and watch the videos. A lot of videos over there, a place where there's a lot of videos, which is good. It gives people a chance to really sit and watch or stand and watch and see what it's all about, the history of the area itself, the history of rockets, the history of going into space, and so on. All the people that were involved. And they have one room, it's a fairly large room, with the pictures and the names and all that of the astronauts that have been to space. Some have been to space like 10 times.
Wow.
And then other people been in maybe once or twice. But some of these people, especially scientists, because it's not everybody that goes up in space is a astronaut. There are scientists, there are other kinds, they're studying, the ability to grow food in space, because let's face it, if we want to go to Mars and stay there, you have to have a way of generating food supply.
It's a long way for the pizza guy.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I don't think Domino's would go there. Or if they did, it costs an awful lot.
But I think there is a Dollar General store already on
yeah,
Mars.
No doubt.
I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, no, you're probably right about that. And it was funny. I mentioned it to you, but it was funny. They had a film clip. They showed one of the astronauts making like a peanut butter jelly sandwich and how he was chasing a jar of peanut butter and jelly, as it floated off into the cabin somewhere, okay?
Yeah, a little humor. So, was it affected at all by the government shutdown? Was the
everybody seemed to be working while we were there.
Okay.
I didn't see anybody. There was nothing, and I wanted to ask somebody yesterday about that. People that work there, and are you a government employee or are you just contracted through subcontractor? And so you're not a direct employee of the government. But I didn't get to ask somebody that yesterday. But with 12,000 people there, and everything seemed to be manned. I mean, there was no lack of people there. People all over the place that were employees, whether they were some kind of guides or they a ticket taker or a cashier, whatever they were, people that work in the food courts and so on. But yesterday was better. Sunday, and what we've heard from the people that are there, the best days to go are midweek, because the weekend is just absolute zoop rate. And we saw Sunday, it was very crowded. Yesterday, it was not as crowded. So I agree with what this person told us, that the best days to go are midweek, like anywhere Monday through Thursday. And once you start Friday, Saturday, it's open 7. The only day it's closed is Christmas Day.
Oh, really?
Other than that, it's open to the public year round and so on. But the better time to go to not have the massive crowds would be like Monday through Thursday.
When you walked through the parking lot, did you do a license plate study? Did you see?
Oh, I saw a place from Hawaii. Okay, I saw a license plate. I saw a license plate yesterday on the back of a Jeep from Hawaii. So I would guess, yes, there are people from all over. A lot of tour buses. So people come in tours from some other location. So there's no telling where those folks come from. But there were a number of tour buses there. The other thing. And evidently, they must have had an awful lot of rain over there, because a good portion of the parking lot was flooded. It was off limits. You couldn't go there. So they had to tour people or, take people out of the place with kind of a back way versus the way you would normally come and go, and so on. So that was part of the elements, I guess, that they had to deal with over there. And let's face it, they're right on the ocean. So, they're susceptible. And I wondered if they get a hurricane coming in off the ocean, everything there is, the sea level. You're pretty close to sea level there. I mean, it doesn't, it wouldn't take much to flood that area, and so on. So,
well, they've had some close brushes with some of the hurricanes have come right up the East Coast there. I don't think they've taken a direct hit, but those missiles, and I forget, they call it the missile forest. Is that what they call it? Where they have all these giant missiles parked, so you can kind of get as you said, an idea of the scope of these things.
Yep.
They have to have those bolted down pretty good.
Well, yeah, they seem to be. They're either welded in place or they've got tether lines that have come off of them and so on. Yes, I mean one of the first things you see when you go in was the actual number of rockets that they have taken. I was trying to get to it now and see if I
John
can
took
find
about took about
Yeah.
1,000 pictures while he was out there.
Yeah, we did. I mean,
But there's probably a lot of that goes on. And I was going to ask you if there's any restricted areas, and then it occurred to me this is a place that's made.
That's
to
one of
take
the
pictures.
first things you see where they
Oh,
had over time, the different rockets that went up in space. And of course, in the beginning, they were very, what I call small. They're
By
big, but they're
comparison.
small.
Yes.
Now they're mammoth because they keep taking more payloads into space. So they have to have, and more astronauts. So they have to have, bigger rockets and all of that to take in the number of people and so on. And then, of course, they show how in the beginning everything landed in the ocean. Okay,
Yes.
They had to go out and make sure the capsule stayed upright and they could rescue the guys and get them out of there. And then as time has gone on, Elon Musk, it showed where when he started, he wanted to do the recyclable rockets.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
and how many times he went there and it was a disaster before they got it to work. I mean, he probably lost, I'm going to pick a number, 6 or 8 massive rockets that they tried to land to recycle them, and they blew up.
on their the floating docks
Yes.
that they were out there.
Yes.
And now I will tell you that I remember when I was very young, and they had just started the space race, and the Russians had put Sputnik into orbit.
Yep.
And America was trying to launch rockets, and they blew up, and they didn't go right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the early part of the United States space program was an absolute disaster. And so for Elon Musk to come in and try something new, where now he doesn't necessarily always land them on those floating barges. They have them now where they can come back to the Kennedy Space Center and land on a launching pad, and
Right.
the gantry actually has these big clips that come out and catch them. And you watch it and you go, "Hokey smokes!"
Yeah, it was, like I said, he went through a lot of trial and error in order to get that to where it worked. And they could, because he was a champion of, why are we throwing these rockets away after one launch? You're talking millions, if not billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. So his attitude, no, we can reuse these things. So that's why he went through all of those trial and errors to get to where they could recycle the rocket itself.
And he does not use the solid fuel. He uses I understand it's a kerosene based fuel, but at any rate, used to, when you watch the rockets go up, and you mentioned the Challenger blowing up, myself and Alan Waltz, I was working at WIPC in Lake Wales, in Winter Haven, and the launch came just right at the bottom of the hour when we would take Florida radio news, And I told Alan, I said, let's not go to FRN, let's just take the launch. And he said, okay, let's do that. So I got done with it, and I said, and now we cut away to the Kennedy Space Center for the launch, and I clipped the switch, and it was 3, 2. I mean, the timing was perfect. It was just one of those things. 3, 2, 1, and there it goes.
Yeah.
So he and I wandered out into the parking lot because we could see it, out there on Dundee Road in Winter Haven. And we went up, and I thought, gee, it looks so bright today. And then there was that big puff of smoke, and they diverged. I went, there's something wrong. And so we walked back in there. We're receiving. There's a problem, and the UPI machine. This is back when they used to have a paper machine,
Mm-hmm.
and when something important, the number of dings that you would have was how important it was. 1 ding, 2 dings, 3 dings. I had never heard more than 4 at any one time. This thing was just ringing like a telephone, ding, 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 ding. And they had 10 dings is a national emergency. We had at least 10, and the spatial is blown up. And I have that in a plastic tub someplace out in my garage. I have that piece of paper,
Wow.
but you could watch them go up. Now you see the dot, but you don't really see that much of a contrail. You just don't see much of it because they're using a different kind of fuel.
Yeah, well, I remember that day because my mom had passed away, and we were at my brother's house in Erie afterwards, and we had, sitting there and whatnot, and then TV was on, and then all of a sudden, they had this, big alert thing, and told that story. So I know where I was when that day happened, and whatnot.
And we stayed in cover. Alan says, "What do we do?" I said, just stay in coverage. And we stayed in coverage until about noon. That happened early in the morning, and so we stayed in coverage until about noon because people in Florida want to know about that.
Right.
Because a lot of us go out there, and we have one of our friends, Thomas Bottoms, runs 863 Designs, who did, by the way, my a couple of things for me. He did my coasters that I have done, and he's really good. But he has a Facebook page called Small Town Astrophotography. And so when there's going to be a launch, he's got a place where he can go and take pictures. Or you can see, like the other night, the International Space Station went over. And they were taking pictures of the International Space Station. Florida's a great place to sit and watch that kind of stuff, especially where we live, where there's not a lot of ground light.
Well, the other thing you can say about Florida, there is an awful lot to see in the state of Florida. I don't care what you're interested in. There is so much to see down here. But, just going over to that complex over at Cape Canaveral this weekend and so on, it's just an amazing, amazing situation. But when you look at it, just the 2 days that we were there, the amount of money that comes into Florida through tourism is just off the chart astronomical. I mean, it's just like you got the theme parks, you've got everything else that goes on, but this Cape Canaveral must be one of the biggest tourist attractions in the state.
Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of the tourist attraction rises every morning in the east and sets every evening in the west, because now as it's beginning to get colder. It hasn't snowed up north yet.
It has my daughters.
Oh, really?
Snowed up yesterday about 10 inches.
Oh, my, 10 inches?
Yes, yesterday. Yep.
Hokey smokes.
Yeah, she showed me pictures last night that her husband had sent to her of the snow that had fallen and so on. So they got quite a bit.
So season may come early this year. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, yeah, I don't know. They're going to go back tomorrow, and I'm not sure how happy they're going to be to go back. But yeah, it was. I mean, this morning I got up. I looked. Temperature was 41, so
we had 39 at my house.
That was cool to me
because we live up further north than you do.
Further north, that's right. Yes, and whatnot.
But it was the cats. The cats were glad they had their fur coats on. I'll tell you that. It was brisk this morning.
You could tell. I woke up this morning. I thought it does feel cool in this house because I hadn't shut it off last. The air didn't run, but I had it on. I didn't think to shut it off last night, so I got up this morning. I said, well. Maybe I better go turn the heat on a little bit, okay? To see what it was.
Oh man, you need to oil something there, brother. I had to tell you. We were talking about tourism, but there's a tourism it's going to come and not go away because Florida is now being inundated with people who want to move here from blue states, and now especially New York.
Oh yeah,
and. I am now beginning to think that maybe we ought to consider telling some of these people who want to flee the blue, the deep blue that's going on in some of these states, to take some purple states and turn them back red. I know Tennessee is looking for people. Georgia would be a great place. Alabama would be a great place. There are places in Texas, of course, there's lots of room in Texas. There are places where people need to consider, I think, other than Florida. Florida's a great place to come and visit and go to the theme parks and maybe enjoy some of the racing. I know that you enjoy the oval track racing in February. I enjoy the road racing in March. And there's all kinds of things that happen during the winter months here in terms of events. But to come to live, I think that if I was going to suggest to people that places they could move, they would be some of the purple places that need to be pushed more red. They need to get back to a constitutional form of government.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what develops now over the next year, 13, 14 months till you get to the midterms. Because it was, let's face it, it was obvious last Tuesday. And I didn't know something last night where there was watching something. And this person said that I want to say this number, I hope I'm right. There were 80 Muslims that won elections across the United States last week. 80.
Yes.
80. Now, some say, well, John, why is that concerning? Why is it concerning? Because you've got the mayor of New York City, who's a devout Muslim. And I don't care what anybody says, But, their goal in life, and they come right out and say it all the time, is to get rid of the Jews, get rid of the infidels. And so when you've got people
And
that are
infidel is like anybody who's not a
That's right.
Muslim.
and whatnot, and when you've got people that this is what they believe, this is what they think, and they're in positions of power, to me, that's concerning.
Well, I've already seen a TikTok video of this gal in New York who is just giddy that now the caliphate begins, the building of the Muslim empire in the United States, and she was offering to help anybody who wanted to convert. Well, just come and see her or go to somebody else, and you could convert now and become a devout Muslim because New York is now Muslim. And I got to tell you, just because they elected the mayor does not make them Muslim, although they think that.
Oh, yeah. Well, the other thing is that it's going to be I know that Kathy Hochul was dancing with Giddy and all that because a guy got elected. But let me tell you something. A lot of the stuff that he says he's going to do is going to require state approval. Even though I know the legislature in New York is democratically controlled, I don't think they're going to want to step too far in that area in order to give this guy all the things. He can't raise taxes on his own. He can't raise rent and freeze rent on his own. Those have to be approved by the state legislature and or the governor. So it's going to be very interesting when all of this so-called free stuff supposed to start happening, whether or not he's able to do it.
Well, he's already said, you remember when I told you to quit sending donations? He said, well, you can start again, because he knows all the money he's going to need to do these things. And I think that outside of every silver lining, there's a big black cloud. And I think that it's been a great gift to conservatives, because as this begins to unfold and the radical wing of the Democrat Party is taking over. I mean, the AOCs and
they're gone.
I mean, they are taking over. It is going to give people a very stark choice, and I think that a lot of people are going to look at this and say, "Well, I don't want that. I don't want that."
They're going to be, I think, in a heap of trouble, because you've got, you're right, the radical people, the AOCs, and this guy now, Mandami in New York. But what he says he's going to do is going to be dramatically different, I think, from what actually happens, because he's not going to be able to get, I don't think the state's arbitrarily going to go ahead and say, even though Kathy Hochul said back about a month ago, and I saw the video of this where she said, don't worry, if Mandami gets into financial trouble, the state will bail him out. Well, now I think she can say that, but the legislature is the one that has to approve those kind of things. So it's going to be interesting to see how much he can actually get done with the so-called free stuff.
Well, and it's also time now for us to begin to encourage all of these young people who believe socialism is such a great thing. Now is your time to go to New York City, because there are a lot of vacancies in New York if you want to go and live. I mean, now I was watching, this guy was talking to some three young college gals who had voted for Mondami, and they said, well, they can't find a place less than $3,000. Well, we heard during coronavirus, all these office buildings were just vacant because, and they have not really repopulated that much. New York had lost a lot. So it's time for all you people who want to join the collective, want to seize the means of production, because he basically, what my takeaway was, he said he was going to up the regulations, up the enforcement until they could take over the businesses and run the businesses themselves. There's one grocer, and I can't remember his name, who's going to pull out, and the girls go, oh, great, your prices are too high anyway. Go ahead and pull out. Now, under the Obama administration, we heard about food deserts where there wasn't a grocery store within 20 miles. Okay, and so they had to open up grocery stores or food outlets closer to the people. Well, now that's what he's going to do. So we'll see who's going to be growing that food. Will they have a collective growing that food? I mean, because what you have to do if you go into a commune, and back in the 70s, when I was in college, I watched these communes kind of come and go. And they didn't last very long because the kids didn't want to work. And there was, it reminded me very much, and we'll talk about this later, about how the original colonization of the United States was based on communes, and nobody wanted to work that way until they came in and said everybody works for themselves. None of this commonwealth anymore. So it's time now to tell these kids, hey, you wanted to be part of a real socialism? Here's your chance. Go to New York City today.
Well, I'll tell you the thing that's it should be very, very scary. Already, I saw this weekend that said that upwards of 5,000 police have already tendered their resignation or retirement at the end, before he takes over January 1st.
Yep.
So there's going to be they've already got a shortage of about 2,000 policemen in New York City. They're going to have a shortage of maybe 5, 6, 7,000 policemen. And he's going to empty Rikers Island out, he says, of prisoners and put them back out in the general population.
And this is a great opportunity for social workers. Now, if you want to get a job, okay, and be a social interventionist, you'll have your chance in New York City. You will have a chance to make history. I mean, you were talking about who would be the first astronaut on one of these wind-up rockets, okay? Well, here's a chance for these social workers. Here's a chance for these social workers who are going to show us, please, show us how this works. Show us, because many of us have been, I'll use the word skeptics. We've been skeptics that when there's a domestic dispute and the husband and the wife are just going at it, and police officers that I've spoken with tell me that is the absolute worst call to have to go on, because when you go there and he's beating up the wife and you go to arrest him, the wife starts beating you up because she doesn't want you to arrest her husband. She just wants you to stop beating her.
Right.
So this will be a great chance for social workers to show us how you go in and through deductive reasoning, show us how to solve these problems without police officers. This is a great opportunity, and I would there I don't know in Florida how many there are, but across the fruited plain, there's many parents who've had terrible problems with their kids who've gone so far left. Well, now is your chance to go to New York and show us how a socialist collective will work.
It's not going to work. It's never worked. It's never worked, and it never is going to work, okay? And all you have to do is take a look at some of the, Venezuela. Venezuela is a prime example of how it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
That was a very rich country, primarily due to the oil reserves that they have. And when Maduro took over and so on, that just went right downhill. And now the people have to scrounge for anything to eat. That's how bad it is.
They were eating zoo animals. Okay. But, John, here's the thing, is that sometimes you just have to let these kids go and experience it for themselves. All right? You have to let them go and get their hands dirty and let them experience it for themselves to decide that it's just not worth it. Okay, I one day there was about 6 of us, and we were driving up to, I think it was a mud bog we were driving to, and I was driving this big Chrysler that wasn't mine; it belonged to somebody else, and I was driving. And the front end was just out of line. It was really hard to keep it. It'd keep drifting. And this girl was in the back seat giving me a ration about keeping it on the road. So finally, I got fed up and I pulled over. And they go, "What are you doing?" I said, "Barbie." They called her Barbie doll. I said, "Barbie, get up here and drive." No. Yes, please. You're such a much better driver than I am. You go ahead and show me how it's done. Mm-hmm. All right. And so she was, and I got in the back seat where she'd been sitting. We sat back there, and about 15, 20 minutes in, she says, "I see what you mean." I said, "Yeah." I said, "As I'm trying to tell you," I said, right. There's something wrong with the front end of this car. Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter whether you went 40 or 60, it would continue to drift. So I think that with these kids, and you see these kids with these socialist shirts on and they're transgender, non-binary, whatever the heck they're going to call themselves, let them get in there. Let them do their thing. Let's show us how it's done. You're so much smarter than the rest of us. Well, we're here to see you put it to practical application. I want to. By the way, a truth train's coming. I can just hear it now.
Yep.
But I think it's time for us to encourage these kids, these college professors, these other people to get in and show us their skill levels and how they're going to be able to run this socialist collective in beautiful New York City. The infrastructure is already in place.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how long before the honeymoon is over. Okay. When you get massive numbers of bad guys on the streets, very few cops even visible, let alone responding. All right. And then all these other things start to add up. Like there is no such thing as a free lunch. When all of that starts to happen, you're going to see how long is it before the honeymoon turns into frustration and then turns into anger and then turns into anarchy. It'll be very interesting because humans are, all of us, I don't care what goes on upstairs in your head, but all of us are used to, we want to be safe. Yeah, we want to be fed and all of that. Those are human characteristics. I mean, you're kind of born with that, all right? And so on. And when that starts to go away for whatever reason under this administration, it'll be interesting to see how long it goes before people start bailing out.
Well, I just read on True Social Media that all of a sudden there's been this surge in buying houses, and they're calling it the Mondami effect. Okay, that people are racing to get in to buy these houses. And I said, do you think it is the surge of socialists and communists in America coming to finally come to the country, to the area that they want to be in, where there's a socialist and communist collective, or do you think it is BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street buying up homes because people are desperate to sell them? Okay, they're buying up homes to use as rental properties, as we have talked about. This is back when you and I and Dale were still on at the radio station, talking about how these big companies come in and buy up these houses above market prices because their ultimate goal is, we can't rent them. I guess we'll have to knock them down and pack them and stack them in the inner cities.
Yeah, that's going to be part of it. What was interesting, too, that I picked up on at his so-called celebration after the election last week. And, of course, they have not free, but they have an open bar and all that kind of stuff. They were charging $13 for a beer.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
I saw this.
So let's face it. Do you think he's a true socialist / whatever, or is he really a capitalist in sheep's clothing? All right. He comes from a very rich family, by the way. He was never poor. He's never really had a job. He's never had an honest-to-God job, okay? So he knows nothing about running the government. He knows nothing about taking over the business and being responsible for it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how much his lack of experience and lack of knowledge of running that's the biggest city in the country, population-wise, the biggest city in the country.
Yes.
It'll be very interesting to see how many, wait a minute. Did you see who's already named his deputy mayor? De Blasio. De Blasio,
really?
The former communist that was in office in New York City.
Well, I think this will be a great. I mean, the Muslims and the communists have some things in common. The way they run things. The Muslims run it through a theocracy, and the communists run it through an ideology. But the goal is still the same: to control the masses. And we know that in communist states that the people who have ingratiated themselves to the parties, they're the one that have the apartments. They're the one that have the cars. They're the ones, they don't live in a collective. Nope. They're running things. And so it'll be interesting. And again, I think that it's going to be, we need to encourage the communists and the socialists who are so happy about this. Hey, you need to go to New York and help out. Because you know how this works. And I just want to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about this maybe some today and maybe some tomorrow, but the density in New York and the idea of taking the houses that were for sale and putting them up for rent when they don't rent, begin to push them into, as Dale used to say, pack them and stack them. There's a trend now towards that right here in Avon Park, and I watched it last night with great trepidation because they went through zoning and comp plan text amendments. Jeff Schmucker from the Central Florida Regional Planning Council, the CFRPC, was there talking about density options for the downtown area, and they were going to go from 4 units per acre to 16 units per acre.
Wow.
Okay, and they were talking about going as high as 5 stories. Right now, they're going to 3 stories, but they said when they get their new ladder truck, for the safety reasons, they want to go up to 5 stories, and they could have as many as 40 units per acre under what they call a PUD, or a planned unit development. Now they're going to have parking for this, but because there's no minimums for parking as it is now. But they are going to try, I think, to put more high density residentials downtown. And I don't live in Avon Park. I work in Avon Park. I like to come shop and enjoy Avon Park. And I will tell you that you risk losing the one thing that you have here, which is the small town appeal. If you go out to Anna Maria Island, over here, they don't allow any structure over 2 stories. And I think that there's a good reason for that. That they want to keep that small seaside town atmosphere, although there's a lot of restaurants. There's a lot of entertainment facilities. There's a lot of what they used to call show bars, a bar with a band, and that kind of thing. But they try to keep everything within easy walking distance, in which Avon Park is not now within easy walking distance. In fact, we talked with Tina Barkley yesterday. It was on today about the bagel bar, and she's got a wonderful facility. But it's really not within walking distance of any place except the shopping center across the street. Because she's way out there, 27 and Anoka and Lake out there, Anoka and Maine.
I haven't seen it yet, and maybe it's happening. I just haven't seen it. But I'm waiting for someone to build a multi-story, huge complex. And there is so much construction. We came back on 417 yesterday. There is massive construction taking place. I'm talking 3, 4, 5 stories high, buildings as long as you could see. All either. Now, what I like today, they have this term, they call it apartment homes. Now, it can either be an apartment or it can be a home. It can't be both, but they call these things apartment homes now. And what's going to happen?
Tiny condominiums.
What I think is, and I'm waiting for it to happen and see it explode, but build one of these huge complexes, but the proviso is no vehicles allowed. If you want to go anywhere, they're going to have to take public transportation.
Oh, the 15-minute city?
Yes. So I'm waiting for those to start happening on a regular basis, and I think we're going to see it because, let's face it, there's 2 parts to that plan. Number 1, you'll never own anything. Number 2, you're not entitled to your own piece of property. Number 3, you're not entitled to your own vehicle. So how do we do this? We build a complex that is no personal vehicles allowed. You will take public transportation to and from wherever it is you want to go.
Well, after the big fires in the Pacific Palisades, they thought that was going to go there. After the fires in Hawaii, they thought that would be built there. After the giant hurricane in Jamaica, they said that they thought maybe they were going to try that there. So there are some places that right after a natural disaster, and there's widespread destruction, now they have rather a blank slate to go in and do this. And I would just tell you that Avon Park is I saw this in Sebring. It kind of happened, I think, the perfect storm, a number of events that came together. But Sebring City Council was there, and this guy came in and said, look, you have a 900 square feet minimum house size. He said, but there's a lot of seniors that don't need that much room. They don't really need that much. They only need about 600 square feet. They really don't need near that much room. So can we lower that so we can build some things for the seniors? And the city council, trying to help out, they said, yes, as a matter of fact, let's do that. And they did that. And all of a sudden, these giant condos went up. Okay, well, one of them went up. One was scheduled to go up. It did not go up because the first one, they were going to charge $250,000 for a condo, and people said, "Well, not in not in Sebring, you're not." And so it kind of just sits there now like a big white elephant. But it was on a lake, a beautiful view out over the lake. It was a wonderful thing, and it just didn't do well. Now they're looking at, I think, basically the same kind of thing in beautiful Avon Park, and I would really caution this council to be very, 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 very cautious about what's happening, because you can't unring that bell. You can't unring that bell.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's like I said, there's a lot going on, and the massive, I think you're going to see a huge influx of people coming from places like New York and some of the others, because it's obvious that the people that have the wherewithal, and here's what, and I sat down the other day and I started thinking about this, because I keep saying to myself, why did these people vote like this? Why did they vote? Why did they keep voting that person back in? But let's face it, like what's going on in New York now, you're going to see all the people that have the wherewithal to leave. Either they have the job, they have the money, they have both, but they're going to leave. What's left are not the people that doers. They're not doers. They're the takers. So you're going to end up with takers. And here's the government sitting there saying, "I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you." Well, I'm going to stay. I'll vote for you forever. So you wonder why these people get voting back in. This is how they get voted back in.
Well, to quote a dear friend of mine, it's hard to beat Santa Claus.
You cannot beat Santa Claus. And this is exactly what sold all these airheads, I call them, up in New York City, is they think, "Oh my God, life is free. I don't do anything now, so I won't ever have to do anything."
They had a woman, and these guys go out and they call themselves independent journalists, and they find these people and just ask them questions and let them talk. When I used to have politicians on, which is, I guess next year we're going to start that back up again, I tell them the same thing. I can't help you any more or hurt you any worse than just let you talk. And a lot of times I'll just let them talk, and sometimes I'll do follow-up questions, because you see faults in the argument. Well, what about this? And what about this? And just let them talk, don't necessarily disagree with them. But he was talking to this woman, and she says, "Well, yeah, one guy's going to offer me a free Lamborghini, so I'm going to vote for him because he's going to be giving me a free Lamborghini." And people were talking about how there's going to be free housing and free buses, and everything's going to be free, and the part that he doesn't tell them is, well, it's going to be free, but you're still going to have to work. You're going to have to work to make all this stuff. You have to drive that bus for free. You have to do the house cleaning for free. You have to do all this other stuff for free because, you're building up your equity to get all this free stuff by working. And we do that here, except we exchange these little pieces of paper for that, And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, and I think it's going to be a real hard object lesson for some people.
Well, I hope it is, because it's in fact, you cannot, if this at all was anywhere near successful, this will blow up all across the country.
Yeah.
I mean, the word free all across the country would be what attracts everybody. Oh, free stuff. Good. Free stuff. Great. Fantastic. I love it. This is exactly what I wanted from you. Okay. I don't have to do anything. We have really developed now, and I think it's the result of the poor education that our kids have received. Grade school, middle school, high school, and college. They've been dumbed down so much to believe some of this stuff anymore because of the teachers that they have, which come from this class of students that this is what they learned, this is what they taught, this is what they were, the professors have said to them, the teachers have said to them, you really don't need to do much to be able to survive. So, okay, good. I won't do anything. I won't get a job. I won't work. I'm not worried about that. I'll just live off of somebody. If it's not a relative, my parents, whatever, I'll live off the government. They'll take care of me.
Yeah, it's indoctrination. It's not an education.
It is not education.
And the government has taken the place. The government has taken the place of our Lord and Savior. Jesus Christ, and has taken the place of God by being the provider of all things. And under the Lyndon Johnson, it took the place of the Father.
Yes.
And, because you don't need a man in the house anymore to get money. The government will give you money, breaking up the family unit, which is
Right.
part of what communism does.
Yep.
And so we are headed right down that track. And the other thing, and I just want to get back to this just for a second, because the other thing with Avon Park and their idea of increasing density, sadly, this county has wanted to be a big boy. They want to be a big county. They want to be like Duval County. They want to be like Miami-Dade. They want to be like Broward. They want to be a big county. And
Even like Polk County.
like Polk County, they don't like the idea of, well, even Polk retains its rural sensibilities. Winter Haven is a small city. Lake Wales is a big town, okay? And there's a charm to that. All right, there's a charm to that. And if Avon Park is famous for putting in low income or affordable, what they call now affordable housing, workforce housing. Every time people find out what it is, they change the name of it so it doesn't sound quite so bad. The workforce housing, well, that's for nurses and police officers. Let me tell you, nurses and police officers don't need affordable housing. They can well afford affordable housing, but they're doing this kind of stuff. And C.B. Shirey, a former city manager, once said, if you make it cheap to live here, only cheap people will live here.
Yep.
My dear friend, the late Steve Roberts, said, if you're going to put up $1 million house in Avon Park, this is back when, let's say a $3 million house now in this county, if you're going to put a $3 million house, where would you put it? And there's really no good place to put it.
Right.
So it's just that I know Avon Park wants to grow. And in order to have shops, you have to have something that draws people downtown or have the people downtown that do it. And there are towns like Orlando and Mount Dora that have things that draw people. As they said in The Bug's Life, they come, they eat, they leave, And so, and as you went to Kennedy Space Center and saw license tags from all over.
All over.
I used to say that up north, the leaves change colors. Down here, the license plates change colors.
That's right.
And we have something every year that doesn't go away, and that's what we're looking at right now: clear skies and sunshine. So
Right, absolutely. Even though it's a little cool this morning, one thing about Florida that I've learned in my years here, it'll always warm up.
yes, sir.
All right, today was a cold day, 41 at my house this morning when I got up, but it'll warm up. It'll get into the 60s, and there'll be days when it'll still get in the 70s, maybe even push a little 80s, and so on. And like I said, my daughter's here, and at her house up in Pennsylvania, just yesterday, they had about 10 inches of snow. So there you go, okay? And I think that's the beauty of it, and that's what I think is going to attract a number of people. It's not only because, let's face it, I mean, what my experience having lived around the country like I did, the cheapest place that I've lived has been in Florida. The cheapest place I've lived.
Least expensive.
Yes. Well,
Least
whatever however you want to term that. All right. That is, in fact, pretty well true. Now, not that it doesn't cost money to live here. It does. But compared to other places where you don't have state income tax, you don't have city tax, that kind of stuff. So it's really, there's a magnet for it. But the weather is also something, if you've, like me, shoveled snow, pushed snow, hated snow, all of that good stuff. And I made up my mind when I was a very young person that I said, Lord, if I get to live long enough to retire, I want to retire where there's no snow.
Amen.
And so on. So I had enough of that when I was growing up.
I'm with you. We're going to pick this up tomorrow because there's a lot more to cover, but we're just out of time for the day. You've been listening to the latest edition of the Barry Foster Show, recorded at the Ridge Floor Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. Any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for the program, just put them in the comments below. If you'd like to drop us an email or like to be a sponsor of the program, you can send us an email at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com. Check out our YouTube page, The Barry Foster Show, daily as we're putting up new programs each and every weekday morning. And please subscribe to our YouTube page and join our pages at The Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. As we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way, Barry Foster and John Larsen, and we'll see you next time.